Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to join our webinar as we go over some frequently asked questions here with the Service Area Editor. My name is Ashley Brown, and joining me today is Dina Palmer, and we are your Member Services Relations Specialist. And we also have on the webinar today with us Eva Donahue, our Member Services Liaison, and our special guest for today is Tyler Dunlap. He is the Oki 811 GIS Applications Developer, and he's going to take you through some amazing features of the Service Area Editor, and we're going to dive right in and answer some of those questions that you all have been having. Before we do that, let's go over a few housekeeping items. So everyone is in listen-only mode, and want to draw your attention to the ways that you can submit your questions. You can use the Q&A feature, or you can use the chat feature to submit your questions, and please feel free to do those. We'll be addressing some of them throughout today's webinar, and then we'll address the rest at the end during our Q&A session. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tyler.
All righty. Thank you, Ashley. So like Ashley said, my name's Tyler. I'm our GIS applications developer. So first things first, if you aren't aware, what are service areas? Well, service area is the mapping information that covers the locations of your assets. And when planned excavation takes place within those service areas provided, you receive a locate request from Oki 811. So you may be asking, what assets do I need to register with Oki 811? Well, the law spells that out for you and requires all operators of underground facilities to register with Oklahoma One Call System or Oki 811. And if you have any questions on that, there is a link at the bottom of our website that you can read the entire law if you would like. But how is that mapping information used to notify facility operators? Well, we got a nice little visualization here to see that in action. So here we have, say, company A. They have a pipeline running through here. It's a center line. Well, they apply a 500-foot buffer to that line to create their service area. Here is a well for, say, company B. Same thing. They apply a 500-foot buffer around that point to create their service area. And then we have company C, who is registered via grids or boundaries. They're just, kind of covering an area rather than using center line or point. So there's no buffer applied to that. But so now we have these service areas in our system, and somebody contacts us. They go online, they're submitting a request, they draw their worksite polygon, and there is a 150-foot buffer applied around that dig site polygon. So in this case, the tickets are going to be generated when the dig site buffer intersects the facility operator service areas. So in our example here, that pipeline and the registered grids, they were the ones that received this request. And then just another quick visualization, if you haven't seen it already, just kind of showing how much how many different utilities and service areas are throughout the state of Oklahoma. So it's kind of cycling here through the different facility types and just kind of showing, really how much coverage we have in our state. And this is a few years old, but at the time it was something like 140,000 square miles of registered service areas. And so there's all of it overlaid there together.
Tyler?
Yes.
We do already have one question. It asks if buffers are customizable.
Yeah, absolutely. So buffers, you can request different buffer sizes. So we do have a buffer form, and a portion of this FAQ, we're actually going to jump into the service area editor, walk through a couple quick things there, and so I'll show you links. But through that buffer request form, you can request that different buffer size. So when you're uploading points or center line or drawing in the service area editor, those buffers, those custom buffers will be applied. Or of course, if you have something on your side, you could always pre-buffer that data and load it into the service area editor yourself. All right. And please keep questions coming. That's we kind of wanted this to be like that, and we want to get your questions answered. So how can updated mapping give me more relevant tickets? This is a question that we get pretty often. And one, the updated mapping ensures you're going to be receiving tickets relevant to your current service areas. You're not receiving things for areas that you sold years ago. And also, you're receiving requests on maybe assets that you have purchased, because we definitely want to have those areas covered. And then the accurate and refined mapping helps you receive tickets that are, around your facilities and not overly far away. So, the more confident you are about your location, that's, we put that buffer on there to give you a service area rather than working in points and lines, but, reducing that down, helping you get more relevant tickets. And we kind of have another example here showing that. So say here, I have a pipeline registered. Well, or I own a pipeline. Well, if I was going to be registered in quarter sections or grids, I would have to have these 7 quarter sections registered, because it conveniently runs along the dividing line in that, like I drew that on purpose. So if we buffer the line with 500 foot, you can already see how much that is refining your mapping down to getting you, getting more relevant area. And so say over a course of time, we have a bunch of tickets come in. So all these tickets would be, you would receive them if the quarter section grids was your service area registration. But now the ones that are highlighted with the red outline are only the ones that you would have got if you were using the buffered line, which in this example is 15 requests with the buffer line versus 32 requests. So this is a little exaggerated, but it shows, how much of an impact this could potentially have. So on the concepts of grids and sections and quarter sections, how can I pull the grids I'm registered in? So Oki does not currently offer a way to pull grid information systematically. In the past, we did used to accept or export grid or legal description information via a spreadsheet. However, we were the ones that were converting those spreadsheets into spatial data on your behalf. So we weren't retaining that list or that spreadsheet. Like, it was the same thing as if we took that spreadsheet, created the spatial information and threw it away. So we're not doing that anymore. There's so many tools that are available for free and open source tools for people to use to create spatial data. And it's and at that time, we didn't, with the service area editor, prior to the service area editor, we didn't have a good self-service tool. And now with that self-service tool, we're wanting to move away from working with legal descriptions and grids on our side. And I do have an example to show later to kind of help maybe explain some of this. But it is something that we are moving away from. But there, like I said, there are resources that you can use to gather this information if, legal description or grids, if that's something that is still involved in your workflow, maybe on your side. There still are resources to get that information. So if you're just looking for a specific area, we do have a visible layer in the Oki 811 maps where you can see the grid label. So if you're curious about that area, you can zoom into the area of interest, find that grid label, and get that information. Or you could use other software like Google Earth, QGIS, or Esri products, paired with a section or quarter section data set. And some of these data sets are available for free. So there's a website called OK Maps. You can Google it. It'll take you there. We can provide links to that. There's a lot of open source data there that is provided by the state of Oklahoma. And under the land grid sections, we have a bunch of different options here. So if, you can drill down and get, down to the sections or the quarter sections, if that's how that's said there. But there are some tools there for you to gather that information on your side. So you may ask, why should I move away from grid or boundary mapping? So like we mentioned, ticket relevancy, that's the biggest one that just jumps out first. It's, ticket relevancy is, helping you not get over notified, and you're getting tickets that you actually have actionable items on, instead of just clearing them out or even potentially sending locators out to an area that doesn't need to be located. So getting those tickets, and that helps streamline your cost as well. But another one that over the years of processing a lot of these conversions, when people are moving from maybe boundary or grid registration, and then going to Centerline, it usually, like, close to every time uncovers an issue that where either there wasn't enough coverage or some grossly, over covered areas. And so what happens and with that is that mapping complacency. You're thinking nothing's changed, but has it? And that's something that can happen. And at one point in time, the 811 industry or the one call industry really did rely on those grids and legal descriptions. And then at some point, all that was converted over to spatial data. And, we see times where it's like, it may have just been a typo and putting it in the spreadsheet of, you transpose one number and all of a sudden you got a quarter section or a whole section registered way off away from your actual facilities. So, getting away from that and actually maintaining spatial data rather than grids helps you keep your mapping up to date and more accurate overall. And the beauty of it is that GIS data and spatial data set can be used for so many other things besides the service area mapping for Oki 811. And just to show, this is a real world example, and visually seeing how some of this happens is, so the outlined areas here is the grid or quarter section registration. Well, this member, they converted to Centerline, and that's going to be that hashed kind of noodle running around there. But and anywhere you see blue is tickets that they would have received with the quarter section, but wouldn't with the line. And then the yellow were the tickets that they did receive with the buffered line. But some things that jump out are like this area here, an area here that's not covered, and then maybe even some areas down here that didn't have enough coverage. So again, just kind of trying to hammer home the benefit of converting to spatial data. So, but you may be asking, you can't just do that at the drop of a pin. So how do you get assistance with geolocating your underground lines? Well, the good news is there are third-party companies that specialize in helping utility operators do that. There are currently 2 sustaining members with Oki 811 that do this, and that's True North Mapping Solutions and Universal Survey and Mapping. Their information can be found in our membership directory on our website. And again, we'll provide these links here in a little bit. And then, another thing is, like, when you're going in the field and locating some of these lines, go ahead and start collecting data and collecting data points. And that could be a way that you could potentially do this on your side. And I've heard that there is going to be a class at our expo this year. And we are going to be going into a beginner or intro course into using some GIS software. So this isn't technically, it's not service area editor training. This is actually will be me giving like a 2.5 hour course on using the software application QGIS and kind of showing how to use it to, kind of in this industry and where it could be useful. So if you're curious and you want to get some training, please attend that. And I think we can drop a link to that registration as well. So another question we get at times is simply, what is the best time to update my mapping? And the answer is really easy. Whenever your underground facilities change. So you don't have something now, you should go in and remove it. You get something new, go in and add it. You can update mapping with Oki 811 as much as needed. There is no limit. You can do it multiple times a day if you need to. And especially with the service area editor, makes that easy. You got somebody in the field sending you, KMZ files or something, you can just go and make those updates as you get them. But again, updating that as often as necessary is important. So another question that we get at times is, whose responsibility is it when facilities are sold or acquired? It's the responsibility of each company to ensure that mapping is accurate and up to date with Oki 811. We at Oki 811 do not know about change in ownership or, abandoned lines and any of these other things happening unless those updates happen or we are contacted about it. But we do encourage those two companies, all the companies that are involved in the process to work together and, help expedite the process, because I'm not a facility operator, but I can only imagine if I'm selling something or I have sold something, I want to stop receiving locate requests on it. I don't want to be incurring that cost. But however, still wanting to be sure that, people are safe and the facility is safe. And then, getting that other company, something you can do if you're selling it is, providing mapping to at least help them get started, not saying that they're just gonna, copy and paste. So that's something that we will not do. We don't take the, removed and just drop it over to the other one. That acquiring company does at least need to validate that is correct. So the passing of that data set or information needs to happen between the two companies. But we can all coordinate together for a go live date to be sure, that either making the change at the same time, or if we're looking at maybe a day overlap, these are all things that that we, Oki 811, can work with these, companies that are acquiring facilities or selling facilities to help the transition be as smooth as possible. And then if you, yes. Yeah.
Sorry, we got
No, you're good.
another question. If an excavator draws a path of work that's being done, does it show up as a path or a box based on the Latin long references that are included on the worksite information of the ticket?
So on the ticket, those lat long points that are provided, they are essentially the extent of that worksite area. So it's essentially the southwestmost point and the northeastmost point, and you kind of create a box there. So if it was a path, potentially some of that is going to be smaller. If you're using a third-party ticket management, we do have or you don't have to be using a third-party ticket management, but we do have a format that does send what's known as the WKT, or well-known text, of the actual worksite. So you will get essentially the exact copy of what is in the system. It's just that well-known text is essentially thousands and thousands and thousands of GPS points. So we can't really print that on the ticket. But the points that are on the ticket aren't the exact drawing. They're just that kind of snapshot or extent of where that worksite polygon is. I hope that helped. All right, and again, if you are selling facilities, we do try to verify with the purchasing company that areas are covered. So there may be there could be a delay on getting some of those removed out of the system. Just wanting to be sure that that acquiring company does have those areas covered, and we do reach out to them and to help ensure that, because at the end of the day, we're trying to keep the facilities protected and keep the people that are working around those facilities safe.
Tyler, we have another great question.
Mhm.
How long does it take from submission for the mapping changes to be published?
So great question. We publish service areas Monday through Friday. It typically happens in the afternoon. If you get a submission in before noon, it's going to be being published same day. So there are some emails that go out. So say you submit something to us, our GIS team is going to review it. Just be sure that there isn't anything just that looks like it went crazy wrong. And we'll hit approve. You'll get an email letting you know that is approved, and you get a follow-up email once they go live into production and publish later that day. But using the service area editor it has expedited our turnaround time on processing these changes. So usually same day, unless it's after business hours. All right, and I think we're on to the next question, which is, who do I contact for mapping or service area editor SAE assistance? Well, that is the OK801 GIS team. So you can send an email to gis@ok801.org. We'll be happy to give you assistance. I did see, so Jan and Zach are both on this webinar with us. They are the other two members of our GIS team and the ones that are handling a lot of these service area updates. But some things that we do offer are free remote training on using the service area editor. So we do have some videos and user guides, but if you still have questions or want some one-on-one training, we can get something scheduled, get on a Teams call, we can share our screen, or you can share your screen, and we can walk you through using it and getting you comfortable using the service area editor. And that's something we do for free. We just want to do what we can to help you be successful. And we'll even, to a degree, help with other GIS software to get you going. So like I mentioned, that training course of QGIS, if there's something that you want to take, we can definitely help you get started using some of that, because sometimes some of those softwares can be very intimidating. I went to school for GIS, and it took time to learn that. But again, working with us and us knowing kind of what's the direction you need to go and not all of the other things that go in with GIS, we can help get you started there. And like I mentioned, we do have some extra resources, but we are always available to help you out.
We
All
have
right.
another question, Tyler, following and that basically on the submission, how long does it take? This question is that single submission by entity or multiple user submissions allowed?
So each code, if you have, we'll just say one code, for example, there can only be one session at a time. So like if you go in and you make some edits and you hit submit, well, and that session hasn't been approved yet, essentially like one of your coworkers can't go in and make edits until those other edits are approved. But multiple edits can be contained in one submission. So, but like I said, there is usually a pretty quick turnaround time on getting those approved. Alrighty. And so these next few questions, we're going to jump over to kind of a live demonstration and walk through some of these things. So some of the questions we're going to address are, how do I access the service area editor? How do I reduce my service areas? What do I do if I do not have an electronic mapping file? And how can I export a map of my service areas? And then can, keep those questions coming, especially as we're going into this kind of live portion here. So I'm going to jump over to here. And just real quick, so one way to get to the service area editor is to go to our website, and you can go to facility operators. That's going to give you the resources that you need. And then down here in the account management, you're going to see the service area editor link. But of course, you can bookmark the actual service area editor for quicker access if needed. So let me sign out here. So when you go to this is essentially taking you to our new portal, or what our portal is going to become. If you already use our other portal to provide positive response, you can use that same login information to access the service area editor. However, you may need to reach out to us to get some account configuration set up. But if you haven't, you can click register, fill out the registration form. Be sure to check the service area editor box so we know that you are requesting that access. And then, of course, provide any of the codes that you're going to need access to. All right. And then, but I'm going to say that I just need to sign in. So really, from that home page, you can click sign in here. We got the sign in and register buttons at the top. So let's get logged in here. All right, so that will take you to the home page. There are different options here. You can either click this facility operator hub and click facility operator home, or service area editor from here, or click facility operator hub here. This will give you some different options. Get to the service area editor. And of course, if I would have clicked here, it would have just took me to this page. So if you're only working with the service area editor, this would be a good link to have bookmarked. But we're going to have some information here, just giving you some reminders. We want to be sure, you want to be sure that any of the files that you're uploading are in the correct projection. And then just kind of remember, members are responsible for the accuracy of their mapping. And of course, our email, we have the map management, how to. Here's that buffer request form. I guess I could go ahead and show that since there was a question about that. So again, by default, it's 500 foot, but you can come in here, you're saying, yes, you're going to request a different size, giving the codes that this should be applied to and what the buffer size is. And then of course, just some other general information of who you are, so we know that you are authorized to make that change. All right, so from here, click this launch the service area editor button at the top, and that's going to bring you here. And I'm going to jump over to our dev site, so I'm not making any edits to actual service areas. All right, so that gets you into the service area editor. And one of those first questions were, how do I reduce my service areas? So one of the easiest ways to do that is, let's see here, let's jump into a code. All right. Actually, I'm going to do this one. So here we go. I have a quarter section, or a couple. I have essentially, multiple quarter sections here that are registered. I'm going to go into an edit session. And this way, to reduce your service areas is I'm going to start here because this is probably the easiest and quickest and most effective way to essentially update your service area mapping if you have that electronic mapping file on your side. And that is doing a full replacement. So what that means is it's going to wipe out everything and it's going to just load in the file that I load. And so I have that upload full replacement button here. It's giving me that option. I'm going to select that. And then as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and click save to convert that to the blue color there. So as you're making edits, you can save along the way, but you can save multiple times within that session. So as you're making changes, click save, go on, make more changes, click save, and then once you're done with everything, then go ahead and click submit. But just to show, compared to the previous, so providing that full replacement is a very effective way to essentially reduce your service areas. Well, this next example kind of blends that question and the next question of what do I do if I do not have an electronic mapping file? So I'm going to hop back over to this code here and go into an edit session. So I'm in this case, I'm assuming, or maybe our mapping file on our side hasn't been updated yet, and we just know there's an area that we need to get rid of. Well, you can come into the service area editor, go into an editing session, and what you're going to do is you're going to click this little red minus circle here to draw a deletion. Then you need to select your tool that you're using. I'm going to go ahead and use the polygon tool. It's the easiest in this case. And then simply I left click to add a vertice, and I'm going to just draw around that area that needs to be removed. Double click, gives me a red box. And when I click save, it's going to remove that area. So that is a quick way to essentially manually reduce your service areas if you don't have that electronic mapping file. Now, say you need to add areas because the reality is you may not, you don't have that electronic mapping file, but you need to update your mapping. Well, we have a solution for you there too. So you can simply, instead of the deletion tool, we're going to use the addition tool. So the green plus sign. And again, this is going to give you different options here, but probably one of the best ones to do if you were wanting to work with lines. So this kind of circles back to the question about reducing buffers. There's times where we do see that, say you're wanting to have like a small buffer and you have a line that runs through here. We see things like this sometimes where it's, kind of like you're trying to manually draw that buffer in. Well, instead of doing that, go ahead and use the line tool, because that will then apply the buffer that is set in the system for you. And with that buffer form, if you don't want the 100-foot or the 500-foot, we can change that. But this way, you're getting a nice clean buffer that can be reduced down. It's a lot easier. There's times where we've seen, people come in and draw that, and it's a lot of work to go in and essentially try to manually draw a buffer. Really, you only want to be using the draw area or the polygon tool if you're trying to cover a large area. So like tracing this quarter section here, or maybe you're an apartment complex, or just, you have a small block here and you're like, we got lines all through here. We just want to cover our property. So those are some instances where you may use the area tool, but ultimately the line tool is going to be your best friend there, or the point tool if you're working with, essentially points, because literally you just click and boom, you got a buffer point there. And again, this buffer can be reduced per your code. And then just some other quick tools. You can use this this pointer tool. It's going to open up some other options here. Yeah, so I selected that feature. So select this feature, and I want to delete it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and save to commit these other changes here. You can also add points through Latin long. And in doing this, let's see if it works. Oh, that's the wrong link. But so if you have some points here, I'm going to change this to a 9 so we can actually be in the state of Oklahoma. But you can use, say, the draw addition tool and go to that add point, add that point in, and it didn't work. Oh, I say this is our dev system, so okay. Well, that was sorry about that. It did work, but like I say, this is our dev system. There's a lot of different changes going on that we're trying to get additional features added. And eventually using this, you should be able to essentially do a list of GPS points that looks something like this. And if you had all those points, you come in here, you add them, and it puts them on the map. Or if it's a line, you could use the line tool and it would connect them all. But just some features that we are working on. We do still want to enhance the service area editor.
You have another question, Tyler.
For sure.
Do you have with SAE, do you have the ability to search by address?
Yes, you do. So I'll show you how to do it here, and then I may have to hop to our production system to show it. But so you have some options here. So you have our session. That's going to be everything that's relevant to your current state, your editing, things like that. Well, we have this find. You can select your county. So we're going to zoom to Oklahoma County here. We're going to zoom to a place, Oklahoma City. And then we're going to search for our address. Oh, and there we go. So it'll give you that parcel information, the exact address. But this is using ArcGIS data or Bing's data to get you there. But we do have that option. You can, of course, see some of your history from your session, so you can actually see your search and go back to that if you move on to something else, and then looking at your other options. All right. And that's the OK811 office. It's not my house.
We have another question. Says that sure. ORWA is recommending rural water districts to use diamond maps for marking their utilities and meters. Do you know if that data is going to work with SAE?
Yes. So we do not use diamond maps, but I have seen some of that software in action. I know some of the people that are helping the rural waters update their mapping and using that. And I believe in the diamond maps there is the option to export to a shapefile. And so that shapefile can be taken from that export and loaded into the service area editor. The service area editor accepts the shapefile. There's usually a zipped folder that has 4 or 5 different sub items in that folder. You can upload KMLs from Google Earth. It works, but kind of the challenge with that is that since the KML is Google's product, if they make a change to their their products, there is the potential that it could break coming into here. But as you can see, one of the files that I did upload earlier was a KML. So it does work, but we have seen in the past that Google changed something and it did create issues. So if you can, uploading a shape file, or even preferably a GeoJSON, which is just another file type, but it's consumed better amongst all different GIS software. But to answer the question, yes, I do believe that Diamond Maps has an export to get you that file.
Thank you, Tyler. And we have another one asking, does Bing data, ArcGIS data, and county tax records match?
Probably not at the moment. That's the unfortunate truth with where the state of Oklahoma is with GIS data at the moment. It was very much the Wild West. All these different sources between Google, the ArcMap or Esri, Bing, and even us, like everybody was kind of on their own sourcing this data. Well, the good news is with NextGen 911, hopefully everybody is going to be on the same page, at least when it comes to street and address points. You can look up NextGen 911 for the state of Oklahoma to get some information. We are going to be consuming this data. There are, I don't know how many counties so far, but maybe not quite half the state has got their data in there, but it is something that I know that we are very excited for, because it is stressful and it is very unfortunate whenever we have agents on the phone and they're getting an address and maybe that address isn't correct, but they're pulling it from Google. But what I've been told is that all these sources are going to be able to access the NextGen 911. So hopefully everything in the future will be the same. But if there's ever an issue in our mapping data, please let us know. We do make those changes. And once we have the NextGen 911 data in our system, if we are alerted to a maybe like a incorrect address, we're going to have the information to contact that who's responsible for that data and let them know of that report, because maybe they need to go out and make that correction. So, and that just kind of helps everybody too, as you would hate it that if there was a 911 call and that address was wrong. So we're trying to help them by how they helped us by providing it, by getting those corrected before there's an issue.
We have another one. A lot of great questions today. How far back can you go to pull up data in the history in the service area editor?
For sure. I'm going to hop to this other code real quick to see if I can get a little bit of a better example. So when you're not editing, you can search for a previous session, and you can look at all sessions that have happened in the service area editor. So not everything historically, but everything that has happened in the service area editor. So I'm going to click all. And as you can see, I got all kinds of edits here. I can go to it and then see the activity for that session, and then look at different edits that were actually made in that session as well. So really fun tool there to be able to pull that. And then with that, on the concept of looking back and pulling that information, if kind of archiving that data is something you want to do too, we have the option to download your service areas. So up here on the toolbar, we have this little cloud with the down arrow. Click that. You got 4 different options here. So essentially you can download to a GeoJSON or a shapefile, and you can download your current service areas or your published service areas. And the difference in that being is the majority of the time, your current and your published are going to be the same. The only time they're not the same is if you have started an editing session and you have changed the current copy until that is actually published later in the day. So you have options there to really conveniently download those. Like I said, the GeoJSON it works well in other GIS systems. The shapefile is an Esri or ArcMap item, so some things may not like that as much, but there are a lot of different conversion tools out there as well. All right. And I believe that wraps up those last questions via the demonstration. There any other questions at the moment?
Tyler, we do have one more question. It is about who has the official address system, the post office, and how are the rural mail routes identified on Okie 811?
Gotcha. So, as far as who has the official, I believe that is going to be the 911 addressing, that at least in the future. You know, like I said, right now it's kind of, it depends who you ask. Every, you know, like the post office, they have their system that they use, and everybody's using these different systems. Hopefully with the next gen 911, that puts everybody on the same page, and that will be the authority. That will at least be what we're using. And the each PSAP or municipality, they're responsible for that data. And for the rural routes, you know, I won't lie, it's definitely a struggle for us in our current setup and maintaining a lot of that. It is information that has been pieced together, you know, from, you know, either making connections with people in the area that are sharing their data with us, or, you know, putting eyes on street signs, you know, and looking at it that way. But again, with the 911 data, that should bring everybody up to a standard. I hope that helps. It's I mean, it's kind of a tough question to answer just because of where the state of Oklahoma kind of was in that boat, but things are looking much brighter, and a lot of the maybe more rural counties and rural areas have been actually some of the first areas that have got their data into the 911 system. So we'll be having some updates with all of that coming in the next couple months. All right, I'm gonna just hop back over to here real quick. Here's some of our contact information. Again, any of the GIS or mapping related questions to the service area editor, you can contact the GIS team at gis@okie811.org. If you have questions specific to your membership, you know, billing, things like that, you can reach out to member services. Look out for future webinars or check out recorded webinars. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future webinar topics, you can hit up our education outreach department. They like getting y'all's ideas and putting out content that's relevant to the questions and interests that the stakeholders have. All right, so any other questions?
We did have a question about the recording being emailed, and yes, we will email out the recording of this webinar. And I also just want to add about with the questions about the data for the GIS. Our GIS team does a really great job at trying to update and improve the mapping in our system all the time. They do a lot of, they put out a lot of good updates and a lot of updates that they get through our excavators when they submit locates and for new subdivisions and all that. They do a great job on updating the data that we have. So I just want to give you all a shout out. Thank you for
well,
that.
thank you, Eva. Yeah, no, we definitely we're making edits in our data every day or addressing areas of interest that have been noted to us. We're putting eyes on that every day, and I think we've made something like 4,000 edits to our data this year. So we are actively in it and trying to get it as accurate as possible. But with that, I don't have anything more. If you have any questions that come up after, like I said, you can feel free to reach out to us and we'll get them answered. Any
Thank you
closing
so
remarks
much,
from Member
Tyler.
Services?
No. We just want to thank you again for joining this webinar with us and giving us all that great information, and thank everybody for joining us today. We hope that you all have very happy holidays and a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.